What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel, or if you guys are new here, thank you for joining us today. So today we're going to get into our 450 preview and prediction show. There's quite a bit to unpackage here today, so I'm going to try to move through it as quickly as possible. And while it might seem like this championship could be kind of boring with Jett Lawrence potentially running away from it, even if that does happen, there's quite a few other storylines that are going to be interesting to follow, and there should be lots of other good battles on the racetrack. One of these guys could step up and give Jett a race at some point during the season. In fact, I think a lot of you are expecting that, because when I asked that very question on my channel, with over 1,000 votes, only 13% of you said that Jett is going to go undefeated again this year. So a lot of you are expecting him to at least lose a moto. Now, we did already do our 250 preview and prediction show, so if you guys want to check that out, the link is going to be in the description. So the first thing we got to talk about in this show is going to be the top riders that we know are injured and going to be sitting out at least the start of the season. And the first one I would like to talk about is going to be Cooper Webb. So Cooper Webb did tear his UCL ligament in his thumb. We saw him trying to finish out the Supercross season, and he really did a pretty good job with that, but he did have to go in for surgery. And he will be sitting out the beginning of the race season. I look for him to come back around round 8, which would be at Washugal. The next rider we need to talk about is going to be Eli Tomac. He's undergoing similar circumstances, however, he did have surgery a little bit sooner, and his was from a Bennett fracture in his thumb. So I look for him to come back at either maybe like round 5 or 6, which would be either Southwick or Redbud. One last rider we need to talk about is going to be Benny Bloss. So Benny was doing a practice session, and he had a bike failure in the whoops, which did end up leading to him breaking a bone in his arm, as well as his collarbone. He had to have multiple surgeries, and after the surgery, his arm actually did suffer excessive swelling, so they had to open up both the incisions in his arms and add wound vacs into there, so that way the swelling could go down, and that's going to have cause for another couple other minor surgeries to get those removed. So I look for him to be sidelined for the majority or all of the season. I believe that Beta was only planning on running a limited schedule anyways. However, he could potentially return at the end of the season if he needs to make a push for staying in the top 20 in the SMX point standings. As of right now, he's only 40 points ahead of 21st, so I don't look for that to hold very long, especially if these guys can start earning points, which it is a little bit easier because they essentially have 22 shots at earning points versus the 17 of Supercross. Moving on to our title favorites. Now, this section is going to be a lot shorter than the 250 version. Some people would probably even argue there's only one title favorite. However, I think there's at least two. Now, obviously, one is favored more than the other, and that's going to be Jett Lawrence. So first up, Jett, there's not a lot to say about him. He went undefeated last season. Nothing's really changed for him. He just has more experience and more confidence. I don't see any reason that he can't go undefeated. Obviously, there's a lot of things that could go against him. Any type of bike failure, a crash on the start. So it's definitely not probable, but I do think it's possible that he could go undefeated again, which would be absolutely legendary. Jett Lawrence, probably your title favorite. Nothing really bad I could say about it. The other guy we got to talk about as a potential title favorite is going to be Chase Sexton. So he is coming off of a Supercross win at the end of the season, but he's going to consistently need to get good starts to get out in front of Jett to try to build some confidence and just make it a little bit easier on him. However, I do think that he could technically have the speed to beat Jett straight up if he needs to come from behind. However, he has yet to do that. So assuming both Chase and Jett stay healthy all season and they just go toe-to-toe like Eli Tomac and Chase did a couple of years back, I would say that Jett is heavily favored in that situation. However, I think Chase could give himself a better opportunity if he does get out in front and maybe cause Jett to make a couple mistakes or something like that. Moving on to our spoiler section, these are guys that could potentially win the title if our championship contenders go out, and they could also get in there and get some moto wins or even some overalls. So the first guy I would like to talk about is going to be Dylan Ferrandis. Dylan supposedly absolutely loves his Honda. He did have some setbacks and injuries in Supercross. However, he is coming out of Supercross relatively healthy, ready for Motocross. This is the moment he's been waiting for all season long. He's exceptionally good at racing motocross, and he is your American motocross champion only a couple of years back. He did technically get second in the championship last season, and he did manage to beat Chase straight up a few times, and he was even right behind Jett, giving him a little bit of pressure at some points during the season. Next up, we have your previous 250 motocross champion, Hunter Lawrence, the brother of Jett. So I feel pretty good about Hunter Lawrence. I think that if he can get a start, he can cause some real problems and maybe even get a moto win. The only thing I don't like about Hunter is that if he is out front and leading a moto, and his brother starts to catch him, I don't expect him to put up much of a fight. So that is going to be a little bit unfortunate, as say anybody else was out in front and Jett was catching him. You know that they're going to do absolutely anything they can to end his win streak if it's still going. And if not, they're just going to fight tooth and nail for that Moto win. Whereas Hunter, I don't expect him to necessarily pull over, but he's definitely not going to do anything extreme or really fight for the race win if his brother comes up alongside him. After him, we have another 250 rider that's moved up into the 450 class full-time, and that is Justin Cooper. So Justin finished second in points behind Hunter last season, and he has consistently shown time and time again that he is an incredible motocross rider. We saw that good result, that clutch result at Motocross of Nations when the USA team won a couple years back. And even last season, he did manage to get second in the points behind Hunter. So I don't look to him to necessarily get any moto or race wins this season. However, I do think it is possible. Look for Justin Cooper to be up there, and he's probably going to be carrying the banner for Star Yamaha Racing all season long, even though he's likely headed somewhere else next season. So next up, we have a real crowd favorite with Aaron Plessinger. So Aaron, he should be pretty good at times. I think a podium would be great. Don't look for too many of those. I think he might get 1 or 2 moto podiums and maybe an overall, but do not sleep on his consistency. Last year, he was the only person besides Jett who scored points in every single moto. So he knows how to get through a full season healthy. He's kind of like Ryan Dungey, but he doesn't get compared to Dungey as much as he probably should because his personality is so different. However, his riding is very consistent like Ryan Dungey. Nothing too flashy. Always there. Always strong. One last spoiler I would like to talk about, and that is Jason Anderson. So Jason Anderson has been taking motocross and supercross pretty seriously. One thing that he did recently was he took everyone out to Club MX and trained for the East Coast rounds on that different dirt. So he wasn't just mailing it in, he was out there training and pushing, trying to get a race win or just make himself better, even though really he wasn't in contention for anything major. Now that we moved outdoors, he seems to be taking that same intensity and applying it to motocross. I did personally see him at Glen Helen ripping motos at the Glen Helen Stopwatch National Pro practices. Even though it was just practice, his intensity levels were very high. He was kind of doing some laps with Ty Masterpool, and he ended up kind of standing him up a little bit in the turn. I don't think it was super intentional, but he was just pushing forward so much that, they kind of got tangled up a little bit. And then he was also coming in really hot on a slow rider, and he ended up just revving the bike super loud and like, get out of my way and all this stuff. It was like, he's just out there taking it seriously. He's trying to be the best he can be. So look for him to be right there in the top 5, contending for moto podiums and just mixing things up with those guys. Moving on to the next section of riders that I would like to cover, I'm going to call them the Outliers. So these are the guys that are just outside of those contenders, but they could still get in there, get in the top 5, maybe get a moto podium, and if the stars align, they could even get a moto win. So the first rider that I'd like to talk about is Ty Masterpool. I am super excited to see Ty back and looking strong. Both him and Joey Savacci are kind of giving me the same vibes, that they're both kind of on the radar but kind of not, and I'm curious to see if they're going to be really good or if they're just going to be good. He was also at the Glen Helen Stopwatch Nationals, and he actually raced the race where he basically rolled around in the back of the pack, literally in dead last for the first 2 laps, and then by the end of the moto, he was already up to 6th, only a couple straightaways behind Brock Tickle, who had stayed in relatively clean air the whole time. He did end up pulling off of the track as he was just using it as a testing session. He wasn't actually looking to race, but there was almost 50 riders in that field. So for him to blow through 40 riders like it was nothing, regardless of how good they were or weren't, and just catch up to the front of the field where we know those guys are talented, is pretty impressive, kind of concerning for everyone else. I'm not saying he's going to go out there and get moto wins, but what I am saying is he looks really good. I do have both motos of the Stopwatch Nationals on my YouTube page. I'll link them in the description below if you guys are interested in seeing that. Anyway, I think Ty will be a real force to be reckoned with. He did get 7th in the points last season, even after missing 5 motos. So I think he knows what he's capable of. He's coming in off of racing Supercross this season, and he was starting to become a consistent main event maker in Supercross, which he is not really well known for being good at. However, he is very well known for being good at motocross. So please keep your eye on him. I'm really excited to see what he can do. The next rider we need to talk about is going to be Garrett Marchbanks. So Garrett is back on the 450 on the Club MX team this season, kind of like last season, which I think is really great to see as he is a taller rider. And I have mentioned my concerns in the 250 video with the Club MX motor package. I just don't quite think it's up to par with the Honda and especially the Kawasaki and Star Yamaha factory motor packages. I think they're going to struggle a little bit at outdoors where the top speeds and the higher speeds really come into play. So I think this was a really smart move for Garrett to switch back over to the 450. Last season, Garrett did get 6th overall in the points, even after missing 4 motos. He did look extremely strong at certain points, and I do look for him to be a true contender. Do keep in mind that he is coming off of that broken thumb that he got in Nashville Supercross, so it's only been about a month. So I do look for him to be a little bit sore and off to a relatively slow start. But as the season goes on, if he can stay healthy, look for him to be up at the front and at least in the top 10. Next up, we have Justin Barcia. So Justin Barcia, not much to say about him. We know exactly what he's capable of and what his accomplishments are. I look for him to be solid and be there right in the top 10 all season long. Then we have the 2 Husqvarna teammates of Malcolm Stewart and Christian Craig. The same cannot be said for them. They've been extremely inconsistent, and that whole Husqvarna team has kind of struggled. Thankfully, Malcolm has stayed healthy all season long, but Christian has struggled with that elbow injury. He's had 4 surgeries now. It sounds like he's going to be with us at the season opener, but it hasn't been that long since his last surgery, and he's coming in pretty unprepared. So I look for him to be not putting in any real good results, at least at the start of the season, but hopefully he can somehow rebuild his confidence. And I do believe he is capable of putting in top 5 rides if he can do that. Now, Malcolm, I'm really not sure what to expect out of him. I've never really seen him be that good at motocross, but I think he's just trying to get through motocross healthy and just carry a little bit of momentum into the Super Motocross series. But realistically, I look for both of these guys to probably be well outside the top 10, or at least outside the top 10, at least for the start of the season, and more than likely, their confidence is probably going to be destroyed. Still a few more riders that we need to talk about. So the next one is going to be Freddie Noren. So Fast Freddie, he's been doing it for years now. Kind of the same thing as Barcia. We know what he's capable of. We know what to look for. He's probably going to be rock solid, be there right in the top 10 all season long. He did earn the number 22 last season, so we know that he's capable of getting a lot of points. I look for him to try to build for the Super Motocross Series and secure himself a place well within the top 20 in points. The next rider we need to talk about is Grant Harlan. So Grant did get hurt pretty bad. He had a major pelvis injury, and he missed the majority of Supercross. This year, he didn't get to race as much Supercross, but when he did come back, he didn't look nearly as strong as he did last season in Supercross. He did do very well in Motocross last season, earning himself the number 23. So I look for him to potentially be pretty good in Motocross this season. However, since he was struggling a bit in Supercross, I am a bit concerned. So I don't have super high expectations for him, but his ceiling is definitely right around the top 10. One last rider I want to throw in this section is going to be Justin Hill. So Justin Hill is coming to Pro Motocross. I'm really excited to see it, but I'm also really unsure what to expect. We know that Justin is an extremely talented rider. He's a previous Supercross champion, so you absolutely cannot count him out. However, I don't look for him to be in the top 5 much or at all, but I am excited to see how much he can get in there and mix it up. Actually, there is one more rider I need to mention in this group, and that's going to be Dean Wilson. As I was trying to record this video, Dean went ahead and made an announcement saying that he's going to go ahead and pop in at Paula for the season opener as he gets ready for the rest of his season. Now, I don't look for Dino to do anything exceptionally crazy, as I know he's not looking to get hurt, and I know he has pretty bad knees. He's been pretty vocal about the fact that he most likely will never race motocross again, just based off of the condition of his knees. So I am a little surprised at this announcement, but I'm here for it. We all love us some Dino. So Dino, get out there, kick some butt, have some fun. We'll see you in Paula. Moving on to the honorable mention category. So these are the guys that are going to help fill out the rest of the points paying positions. And I think they're worth mentioning that they're going to be starting the season and just drawing some attention to who else will be in the class that we need to keep an eye on. This is not to say that there's not other guys that could be in there that are not worth mentioning, but that just these are the guys that got my attention. So first up, I just want to mention Brock Tickle before somebody freaks out and says that I forgot him. We did see Brock out at the Stopwatch Nationals, which he ended up winning. He's going to be more than likely coming to the Motocross Series on essentially Adam Cianciarulo's Kawasaki, so he will be on a factory team. He's been a test rider for the team for a long time now, so this is not out of the blue. We know that he is probably going to be staying in his test rider capacity for the beginning of the season in case Jason has any bike settings that he needs to work on at the start of the season. And then once things settle down and Brock feels comfortable, he'll likely come out and join the Motocross series. Moving on to guys that we know will be at round 1 in Pala. Now I do have a dozen or so guys here, so I'm going to just blow through it so that way you guys know who's on the list and that they're going to be there. So first up, we have Kyle Chisholm, then we have Derek Drake, Derek Kelly, Cullin Park. Now I do want to mention that Cullin is coming off of that gnarly wrist injury. I did actually do a pretty cool video on that specific incident. He had quite the night at that race, so if you guys want to check that out, I will also throw that in the description. Also worth mentioning, he is Dylan Ferrandis' teammate, and he did step up to a 450 from the 250 class. Also, Lorenzo Locurcio, Henry Miller, Romain Pape, Jerry Robin, Robbie Wageman, Marsha Welton, who's also stepping up to a 450, Anthony Rodriguez, and then I also want to mention Josh Moseman from Motocross Action will be out there on a 350. Ty Masterpool's brother, Jake Masterpool, will be out there. Not saying that we should expect anything out of him, but just keep your eye on that. Now, this is not an exhaustive rider entry list. There's over 70 riders entered as of the time of this video. These are just some of the guys that I thought were worth mentioning and talking about. Now, I will be going to the season opener in Pala, so if you guys are here for that, go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you have, I really appreciate it, and I'll be looking to bring you guys the best content that I can. I'll also be covering the entire Motocross and Super Motocross Championship through the end of the season, so if you guys just want to see that, also feel free to stick around for that. But with all of that being said, that's going to go ahead and do it for this video. If you guys made it this far, I really appreciate you sticking around. If you would like to support the channel, I do have my own shop, Moto Fever Shop, which is motofevershop.com. If you guys want to check that out, the link is also in the description. Feel free to check that out. There's all kinds of new stuff. I'm adding stuff all the time. There's mugs, shirts, hoodies, all kinds of stuff on there. So check it out. Grab something if you like it. I appreciate you guys sticking around this long in the video, and I'll see you in the next video.